What up, you poops and peeps? My name is Mal Malos, and happy Valentine's Day. If you have a partner, good for you. If you're single, well, join the club. Anyway, rather than getting mixed signals or having my feelings mixed up, I'm here to talk about mixing. And this video is definitely not an excuse for me to stay home because I have nowhere to be or nobody to be with on Valentine's Day. Ha ha ha! So I made a quick loop for us to play with, and if you want to follow along with the same sounds, you can get this project on my Gumroad for free. There's also a document there that's pretty much a detailed overview of everything we'll be doing in this video. But if you don't download it, you won't be missing out. Link in the description. So here's the loop. It's simple and raw, and we're going to be using this as a reference point for comparison. Just a simple lo-fi beat. We have a melody, a chord progression, chord layer, bass line, and the drum group. In the mixer, you can see that I've already routed them to their own mixer tracks. You don't have to worry about the creative effects that I put up here. Just focus on mixing and making the elements fit. Now, before we get into mixing, I'm going to give a short lecture. If you don't need it, you can just skip ahead in the video. Fundamentally, you're supposed to listen to three things in mixing: gain, frequencies, and stereo imaging. In any order, I guess. Let's talk about gain. Picking the gain of all your song elements is the easiest thing to do. Generally, all you have to do is check if anything is too loud or too quiet. You can adjust the gain sliders or use plugins with gain utilities such as Fruity Balance or Fruity Blood Overdrive, sidechaining, which will be tackled in this video, and transient shaping. If you want to increase gain, you can do that with saturation or distortion. And most distortion plugins come with a post gain, which you can lower if the distortion makes it too loud. Compressors and limiters are very helpful. They make adjusting gain easier throughout the song, so you don't have to automate the gain manually every time. When dealing with the frequency spectrum, it's important to note that your low frequency sounds could develop phase issues and are easily noticed if not treated, and your high frequency sounds tend to pierce through the mix, which results in harshness. These issues can be fixed with EQ, dynamic EQ, multiband compression, sidechaining, and de-essers. If you've heard of Soothe 2, it's kind of similar to sidechain, but it just ducks frequencies that are too harsh or too resonant. If you've heard of the term frequency masking, where you can use one sound, like let's say a vocal, and use its frequencies to slightly sidechain another element, like a synth pad in the background or something. And last but not least, stereo imaging. Stereo imaging is what people refer to when they talk about their song elements sounding wide. This helps in the mixing process to ensure that some of your song elements have their own space in the stereo field, which you can do with stereo wideners, mid-side EQ, and panning. Now that that's out of the way, let's focus on the melody for now. I'm going to play the whole thing again, but focus on the melody. So listening back to it in context, I can hear that the melody is too loud compared to the other elements in the song. So I'm going to lower its gain. That sounds better on the ears, but there's a harshness to it. This is where we use EQ. If I solo the melody, you'll know what I mean. Harshness usually comes from the higher frequencies, probably around 2000 Hz and upwards. So what I'm going to do is lower this high shelf until it sounds more decent. Okay, now if we listen to the lower frequencies, we can hear a resonance, and the reverb isn't helping to mask it. And you can see what I'm talking about if we take a look at the spectrum over here. I'm going to change this last band to a high pass, change the steepness. I'm just going to cut it up until the fundamental notes. Using a high pass like this also helps take out frequencies that clash with the bass. And don't worry about how the EQ looks, worry about how it sounds. Here it is without the EQ. Here it is with the EQ. Sure, it does sound pretty filtered, but it's more pleasant on the ears. So now we move on to the chords. In terms of gain, I think it sounds fine. So let's just get an EQ. And again, we're going to take out the low end just to make sure there aren't any frequencies clashing with the bass. Okay, I think that's good enough. In most cases, taking out 100 to 200 Hz should do the trick. Of course, depending on the fundamental frequencies, which is here. Now for the chord layer. Gain seems good, but I'll still be using an EQ to take out the lows. And if we go back into our melody, we can see that the main notes are playing around 500 Hz. So that means we can go back into our chord layer and take out some of the frequencies here to leave some room for the melody. You can also do this with other elements like making a vocal fit a different chord progression or maybe a pad in the background and stuff like that. I'm also going to boost around 200 Hz just because I like the mids of this pad. That sounds great. Quick side note here, some say that cutting out all the low end of all your non-bass sounds is bad or unnatural. I get that, but none of these sounds are natural or organic. They're synthy. And let's not forget, I'm an EDM producer, so do what you will with that information. That said, if your song does have organic elements that vary in dynamics like vocals or live instrument recordings, using a compressor or multiband compressor can help make the gain adjustment easier. This also includes limiters. Getting back on track, we're going to move on to the bass. And like I said, don't worry about the effects up here, just focus on mixing. So if we listen back to the whole thing and focus on the bass, sure, it works. It's not overpowering, but it sounds too weak for my taste. So I'm going to add overdrive and a soft clipper. It's a common technique to use distortion or saturation to increase gain, but don't overdo it. Sounds good. And since we already worked on making it sound louder, we still need to work with its frequencies. Because bass frequencies clash with the kick, we're going to do sidechain. As you can see, I've already routed my bass into the sidechain channel here. And I've only realized that sidechain has been going on ever since the beginning of this video. Jesus f***ing Christ. Why? Why? Just f***ing why? With sidechaining in mind, you can use an EQ on your bass and sidechain the low frequencies to cut out every time the kick hits. But I don't want to do that. Instead, I use a gain automation. If you go back into the mixer, you can see that this is a patcher preset that I made for myself. And you're probably wondering, but why don't you just automate the gain slider or fully balance? Because if I automate either of those, I still need to copy the default values just so that I don't increase the gain of the elements routed to the sidechain. And I'm lazy. Under the hood, it's just a fruity balance with a controller that limits the maximum value of this knob to go all the way up 0 dB. Which means if I push this up here to the max, it won't go over 0 dB. So when I automate, I don't have to do this all the time. I don't have to do that. Let's work on the drums. Personally, I don't really work on my drums. I just route them all to the drum bus over here and have a multiband compressor just to make sure that they don't clip. And this is true for most of us if the samples we use are already good enough. Let's do that again. These drums right here are from my own sample pack, and they were made specifically for lo-fi, which is why they fit the vibe, at least in my opinion. But if you want to work with bad drum samples or like some Foley, you can probably get good results with EQ, transient shaping, messing with the gain, compressing, and ultimately a multiband compressor on like a drum bus like this. If you want me to make a video about drum processing, let me know. So now that we've done all the mixing needed, we can turn off all the effects, even the sidechain and the drum bus effects, just so that we can do an A/B comparison. So once again, here's how it sounds before mixing. And here's how it sounds with everything mixed.